Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Tuesday, December 8th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Today's topic, roster moves. We chat with Lynn Worthy, who covers the Royals, about the addition of pitcher Mike Minor and some non-tender decisions made by the club. Who does Lynn see as players the Royals will bring back from that group? We'll also hear from Mike Minor, who met with reporters after his signing. After a break, Shaun Goodwin stops by to talk about the end of Sporting Kansas City's season last week in the playoffs and what's next for the club from a roster standpoint. We hone in on the future of Matt Besler. Can you imagine a Sporting Kansas City roster without the captain? And we talk about a happy development, the return of women's professional soccer in Kansas City. That was announced just earlier this week. So all of that today. Let's get going with Lynn Worthy talking Royals. Lynn Worthy is here. Lynn covers the Royals, and as there always is, plenty of news in the off-season. Lynn, last time we talked to you, we talked about the Royals signing of Maikel Taylor, the outfielder from the Washington Nationals, and that was less than a week ago, I believe. And since then, more news with the roster has occurred. I think one of the more significant pieces of news to come out was the Royals announcing the non-tenders of 4 players, including Maikel Franco, who had a terrific season at third base for the Royals last season. Tell us about that. Why did it happen? What is in Franco's future, and what's in the future for the Royals at third base?
Well, I mean, at that deadline, there were actually, I'm trying to remember what the actual number was, but it was something like close to 60 guys got non-tendered this year, and there was a whole lot of talk that was going to happen because teams were looking at the financials and everything. But with Franco, he was arbitration eligible, and he was coming off a season where his base salary was, I think, just under $3 million. Dayton had pretty clearly in the media availabilities we had last week talked about the guys they had signed were guys that were willing to work with them in terms of finances, and that they were, probably going to have to walk away from some guys if, the numbers didn't align. And he didn't say Franco in that period of time, but it seemed that it was pretty clear that that's who he was referring to. And so it wasn't a surprise that it came to that day and Franco was the guy they cut loose. For a couple of reasons. One is, they do have some options, whether that's going free agency, whether that's Hunter Dozier, whether that's, plugging in a guy, whether that means like a guy like Mejia comes back and they give him a little look there, or, a guy like Kelvin Gutierrez. But also, I mean, if he was trying to really bank on the season he had, which he had, he led the team in RBIs. I think he was among the league leaders in doubles. Was batting upwards of 270, I believe. I want to say it was like 278.
278, yeah.
Yeah, he had a good season. So if he was trying to make bank on that, and the Royals just didn't, they reached the number that they didn't feel like they could sign him at, and then they didn't want to go through arbitration. We know the Royals rarely go through arbitration.
Right.
It was not a shock. And I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I had an indication that, like I said, he made 3 in base salary last year, that the number he might have been looking for was more than double that, maybe closer to triple that. So.
Well, that'll, and you're right about the Royals. Their history of arbitration is they don't go to arbitration. They get things settled. And Franco, 60 played in all 60 games last year, 8 home runs, 38 RBIs, led the team, as you said, probably on pace over a 162 game season to homers in the low 20s, RBIs pushing 100. And, just a good all-around solid season for him at that position. The Royals were really happy with him, and a good clubhouse guy is from what we heard, right? We didn't spend any time in the clubhouse this year, but a good influence in that regard. So let's go over the options again. What could the Royals do at third base coming up in 2021?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, one of the primary options, you could just easily move Hunter Dozier back to third base where he started in 2019, where he played a lot in 2018 after, I think it was 2018 after the Moose trade. He was basically your everyday third baseman. And then 2019, he went into the season as that. And then late in the season, they moved him out to the outfield. But I mean, I think at the All Star, at the end of the fan voting in the All Star in 2019, he was like second or third behind Bregman, and he was in the top three. I know that for at third base for just from the fan voting. That is, he didn't end up making the All Star game, but fan voting, he was one of your leading vote getters in 2019 at third base. And then obviously they moved him in the offseason. They knew they'd had a chance at getting Franco. They thought Dozier would be a fit in the outfield. So um, he went into last season looking at primarily playing the outfield. But as the season went along, they had him playing a lot of first base. And Matheny talked about how he's a potential gold glove type guy at first base, and they really like him there. But he's played third base. That's where, he's played still more games than anywhere else, I believe, at this point in his big league career. So you got Hunter Dozier. You got Kelvin Gutierrez, who we saw play a little bit in 2019, who I'm trying to remember which trade that was with the Nationals that they acquired him a couple years back, and they've talked about him as being a potential future third baseman. He's just had injury problems, and that was part of the reason that they went and got Franco. Is they weren't sure that Goody was ready to sort of step in and take that. Um, and then after that, I mean, there's whether you want to talk about like a guy like Mejia who technically is cut loose, but I think they expect he'll be back. He's a guy who's played all over the place, and then down the line, the part that's sort of interesting to me is you know with Mondesi sort of solidified at shortstop. Bobby Witt Jr. has played third base in the spring training 2.0 and also in the alternate site. I mean, he's moving around the infield a little bit, but he's definitely played some third base, and I think it was JJ Piccolo said back in the summer that they were making a concerted effort to get him some time at third base in the alternate camp, which obviously we weren't at, but we know he's got time there as well.
Interesting. Boy, that would be a star-studded left side of the infield if you had Mondesi and Witt over there. So let's. You mentioned Mejia. He's one of three others who were non-tendered, along with Guzman and Bubba Starling. But you think there's a chance that those three come back with the Royals?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty strong chance. I mean, and for people who I know I saw maybe a tweet or two saying something about it's Bubba's time is run up, and I'm like, well, Bubba's been through this before. He was non-tendered before and came back to the Royals, so this is not new. This is more of a timing thing where I mean they obviously need a roster space if they're going to go sign guys. In order to sign a play like Taylor or Minor, you got to have room on the roster. You got the Rule 5 draft coming up. If you're going to add guys for the Rule 5 draft, you got to have space on the roster. So um, and it's calculated, sort of a calculated bet here that you're cutting the guy loose, but assuming you're going to be able to bring him back, maybe even have a side deal where you might bring him back, and that he's not going to go to another organization. And there's a lot of free agents out there right now too, so you figure it's probably a pretty good bet you're going to be able to secure your own free agents, guys, that you had to cut loose that you wanted to keep in house.
Gotcha. Okay, and you mentioned Minor. That's the other. I think after we recorded last week, that later that afternoon or the next day, Mike Minor signed with the Royals, back with the Royals. And if a player can win a press conference in the Zoom world these days, I thought Minor did a terrific job talking to reporters, you and others. The other last week when he mentioned, this was a signing that. How can I put this? That the Royals taking care of him while he was in the organization seemed to pay dividends for the Royals now.
Yeah, I think he even used the phrase he felt like he owed it to Dayton and the organization in terms of signing, coming back to them, signing the deal with them, because it was 2015. He's got the shoulder surgery, ends his season in I think it was May. 2016 didn't end up pitching at all, but was under contract with the Royals and part of the organization, and didn't throw a pitch for them in a big league game, but was under contract and was under contract for the next year, and so it obviously pitched out of the bullpen for them in 2016. So this the way that they handled that, the way that they treated them, the way they made them feel a part of things in 2016, I mean, 2016, and then before he pitched in 2017, that is, um, I think really lasted with him and just being part of that group, even though he wasn't necessarily, on the field with them in 2016, really stuck with him. And the fact that Dayton and some of the people in the front office handled things the way they did, and then also the fact that they came at him aggressively to start free agency this time. He mentioned that right out of the gate they came and got in contact with his agent and were ready to make an offer. And I think in his words, he said it was earlier than you expect to actually get an offer, or no, earlier than is normal to get an offer. But they made it pretty clear out of the gate they wanted him. They wanted him to be in part of their rotation, and instead of waiting to see what the market held and how things unfolded, he jumped on it.
Yeah. So he was an all-star 2 years ago, 2019 with the Rangers, and 200 Ks and 123 whip, 359 ERA. Great credentials with Texas. But this past year, in the abbreviated season, 1-6 with 5.56 ERA, 62 Ks, but a 230 opponent's batting average. Pitched almost 57 innings for Texas and in Oakland. So, what did he say about the difference between 2019 and 2020 for him?
Well, he was pretty blunt when asked about 2020. He just said it was awful, and I mean he didn't. I don't want to say he made excuses, but I mean, obviously we asked him follow up questions. It sounded like um, just the disjointedness of 2020 with the pandemic and everything really had him off for the better part of the entire year. So when I asked about the break between the two spring trainings, it sounded like he wasn't able to get on any sort of a consistent program, which is one of those things that during the summer we've talked to multiple Royals pitchers about how they were able to throw and they were able to stay on a sort of a program and sort of had a very designed way they were going about things in constant contact with the pitching staff and I mean the pitcher coaching staff dealing with the pitchers and everything. It sounded like Miner was sort of uh, just out on his own for a while. He talked about playing catch. He talked about being able to trying to get on the sneak on the fields to be able to just throw a little bit and throwing against the wall and things like that. Um, and so it sounded like he was just never really got in sync. And then when he was pitching the games, like he said, he thought after that second point of spring training, the spring training 2.0 summer camp, thought he had, he was ready to go. But as the season started, just mechanically all over the place. Change up, which is his best pitch, didn't feel right, and it wasn't until the end of the season that he felt like he really felt comfortable. So now, of course, the flip side of that is people point to and say, well, he's going to turn 33 in a few weeks here, or maybe he's just getting older, and the Royals signed at least 2 years guaranteed for a guy who maybe is on that downswing. So that's the pessimistic view, obviously.
Right. But okay, we're going to hear from Mike Minor in his meeting with reporters when he signed. We'll do that in a moment. But first, I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate an old friend, Dick Cagle, who just today was named the winner of the J.G. Taylor Spink Award that's handed out by the Baseball Writers Association of America for meritorious contributions to baseball writing. Dick has been he was in the baseball writing game for more than 5 decades, and for a couple of those at the Kansas City Star mostly in the 90s and the 2000s. Went to work for MLB.com after that. Before that, he had a life over on the other side of Missouri, covering the Cardinals for newspapers there, and worked at the Sporting News. So I've known Dick for almost my entire time at the Star, more than 30 years, and it's a wonderful honor. It's really a lifetime achievement award for a guy who has given his life to baseball writing. So, Lynn, I don't know about you. 5 decades? You got 5 decades in you of baseball writing?
Well, as they like to say in the ball game, take it game by game, take it game by game. But
Yep.
it was great to hear that news for Dick, and I actually got an email from him a couple of weeks ago because when the news came out, he was a finalist. A few of us on Twitter were talking about just how great he's been to us writers coming up, and he's not on Twitter, but it must have got to him at some points because he emailed me and just wanted to thank me for saying the kind words. So, and obviously, see him having been around back when we were actually covering games and in clubhouses and all that sort of stuff. A season ago, got to see him a lot then. So, it's great to hear this.
Yeah, and I think if I'm counting right, third writer who spent a lot of time at the Kansas City Star to win this award, following Joe McGuff, the longtime columnist and of course contributor to the success of Major League Baseball in Kansas City in the Royals, and Tracy Ringlesby, longtime baseball writer. So. Again, congratulations to Dick Cagle. And now we are going to hear from Mike Minor as we bid farewell to Lynn Worthy. Lynn, great talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
No, the time I was there, going through the rehab process and rehabbing the shoulder and everything, I feel like everybody treated me well. I felt like that maybe I didn't deserve it at times because I wasn't pitching, and I know a lot of other people, other organizations would maybe kind of throw me to the side, and I didn't feel like they did that there. I felt like Dayton was very honest with me the whole time, as well as Jen. And, I had a good time. There was a good group there when I was there, good memories, pitched well there when I did pitch. So good city, good fans. I liked everything about it. So it was kind of an easy decision. Had some other teams interested, but Kansas City came after me pretty hard, so I didn't want to pass it up. Yeah, I think they're trending up. Obviously, they've had some down years the last couple of years, but they're trending up. I know that they want me to step in and kind of mentor some of the young guys and I guess show them the ways a little bit, especially the starting staff. I think it's me and Duffy, and then Keller's in there, but he's still kind of a young guy, and then a couple of the other guys that are really young, just coming up, have a cup of coffee last year or right there, and about to come up. I think that hopefully I'm here for both of the years. I know things how they are with the business and everything. If we're not competing and we're kind of at the bottom again, then they might trade me. But right now we're trying to win. We're trying to win, trying to be competitive, and I think that we have the pieces. Like I said before, there's some guys there that I played with that I know how they are, I know how they compete. And there's some young guys that are probably hungry and ready to play. So, I think we're ready. Last year, like I said, I didn't start off very well. I didn't feel that great. I felt like mechanically I was off. I felt like my body was tight or something. Wasn't coming out, wasn't whippy. And then that last 2 weeks of the season, going into the playoffs with Oakland, I feel like I turned a corner, working on some things in the weight room, working on some things on the mound, and then velo started going back up, and then the season was over. I feel like I learned some things when I got traded over to Oakland. They showed me some things that I thought I was missing out on, and that I previously done, and then forgot about doing or lacked, doing that stuff in the weight room or the training room. And then I started doing that stuff, and then feeling better, feeling more in tune with my body, and stuff was starting to fire, starting to activate certain muscle groups and stuff like that. And then I feel like the performance was trending up. But like I said, it wasn't a long season. So yeah, I've talked to Nick Kenny, the athletic trainer, a little bit about some things like that, and I've already told him I don't want to be babied. I don't want to be held back. I want to pitch. I don't want to be. And I've talked to Matheny about it too. That I don't want to be taken out of a ball game just because the third time through the lineup's coming up, or because I'm at 90 pitches or whatever it is. I want to be taken out if I'm not performing, or if I feel fatigued, or if I look fatigued. That's just kind of how I view things. And I told him I'm kind of old school, and he agreed, and he's kind of the same way, I guess. And so they already know how I feel and where I stand on the next season. I don't want them taking me out until the ninth inning. I want to be out there and I want to give it everything I got every night.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Stars award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeat KC Offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Shaun Goodwin covers Sporting Kansas City for the Star. We have not talked since the season ended for Sporting KC. Shaun, first of all, how you doing?
I'm good, Blair. I'm mixed emotions. Sporting KC is finished, but Kansas City's getting an NWSL team, so can't complain about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a moment. Let's go back to last week and the loss, painful loss for Sporting. Entered the playoffs as the top seed. Won just a incredible game against the San Jose previously, and came into the Minnesota United game, I think, confident and just feeling good about itself. I had a little premonition when Alan Pulido was a scratch, and I know Peter Vermees said he would have played in the next game, but once I just felt a little shoulder sag when I found out Pulido wasn't suiting up for Sporting that night. And listen, you can't hang a 3-0 loss on the absence of one player, but he would have made a difference at some level, wouldn't he have?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember if I said it on here specifically, but I talked to a couple of places ahead of the game, and I was basically saying a big matchup is obviously there's 11 men on both teams, but it'd be Alan Pulido versus Emmanuel Reynoso. And when one of those isn't even on the field, it's Emmanuel Reynoso versus no one at that point. And obviously we saw he went out there, he got 3 assists, and that was the big difference because Sporting he just, at least for the first half, didn't really give him the respect he deserves, so to speak. Far too much space, far too much time, and they ultimately paid pretty dear. So yeah, I mean that was the big sort of issue for Sporting KC in that game, and obviously missing Pulido doesn't help. I mean, it reminds me of when they were dumped out of the MLS's back tournament way back against Philadelphia. In that game, they went down 2 or 3-0. And
3-0, I think, early, yeah.
Yeah, they went down 3-0. Alan Pulido he was the one who grabbed Sporting's only goal right before half-time. And there was a little bit of that false hope, but he's the guy who can at least make something out of nothing. And Sporting could have used that this time round, especially with it being a playoff situation, but obviously he wasn't available for such frivolities for KC.
Yeah. So the season ends, and we know that Minnesota has been eliminated. Had a 2-goal lead on the Seattle Sounders after 75 minutes, and Seattle ends up winning that game 3-2. Sounders are just the class, I think, of Major League Soccer right now. So they're through to the final. And Sporting Kansas City is looking to next year. So, Shaun, let's just speculate a little bit. There are some moves that we expect Sporting Kansas City to make for the 2021 season. What are the priorities for this club? And just how about some names and thoughts on who you think will return and who will not be back for Sporting Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of guys who are either out of contract or have options for 2021, 2022. I think the big names, obviously, that people are going to be looking at is the immediate guys who are out of contract. Primarily amongst those, there's been obviously a lot of talk because Matt Besler, Roger Espinoza, those are the big two who are out of contract basically now, at the end of the season. If you were to ask me, Peter keeps a lot of this under wraps until, we hopefully will be told later this week. I've been told the club is leaning towards releasing the roster movements later this week, but it could very well be after the MLS Cup. But as for Matt, I made a thread actually on Twitter a couple of days ago, basically saying that because he plays his last game back at the end of September, I think it was now, so it was a while ago, or October maybe. He got injured and we haven't seen him since. And I think that might have been the last time that we saw Matt Besler in a Sporting KC shirt, which is incredibly sad when you think of, what he's done for the team, the city. He's a Kansas City guy. But with the options Sporting has in defence, with looking to move on to a new core, and then just his overall dipping performance, which just comes with age, like any player. For the money that I'm sure he would want, unless he takes a massive cut, I don't think he comes back to Sporting KC in a playing capacity. I think he has the ability to offer his talents elsewhere in the league for a couple of years. He's still only 33, if I am correct on that. So he definitely has the time to play elsewhere. I just don't think it's in Kansas City. And I guess I'll go on.
Well, I was going to say, I can't imagine him in a different color uniform. I just can't. It's just one of those, you mentioned it, not, he's Kansas City, right? Blue Valley West. And I think top, I've had this discussion with other sports writers, just, one of the top professional athletes who grew up and went to high school here in Kansas City that ended up playing for, the hometown team. Guys like Frank White is probably at the top of that list. Lincoln Prep High, and then longtime multiple Gold Glove winner for the Royals. So that's just. But there is a business to run with all professional sports teams, and he may get caught in a business decision that Sporting will have to make.
Yeah, it's not quite the same because, as you say, he's a Kansas City guy. Like, it makes me think of Seth Sinovic too. Obviously,
sure.
For his whole career, basically. Yeah, it's just last year, Peter Vermees finally made the decision that, hey, it's time to move on. And Peter has always said in his whole career, coaching at Sporting KC, he made one decision based on emotion. He never tells anyone what that decision is. I know Sam Mellinger has mentioned it a couple of times in some of his stories. He's had one decision that he's never told anyone, but he regrets it. And I think, again, this isn't a time for emotional decisions, and I don't expect Peter to do so. And I think if you look at all the factors, the logical decision is you move on when you look at who else Sporting KC has in defence. And I assume we're going to bring in another solid centre back, because I don't expect Winston Reid to stay. So that's my thoughts on Matt anyway.
Okay. Well, we now have a charge as journalists to get that piece of extract that piece of information from Peter Vermees, his emotional decision that cost him. That's right. My appetite is whet for that piece of information. Okay, you mentioned it earlier, and that big news this week with the return of women's professional soccer to Kansas City. It's official. The women are returning. When they left as FC KC or FC Kansas City, they were one of the better franchises in the league. They were here for 5 seasons from 2013 through 2017. They won 2 championships. They averaged in their best year, 4,600 fans, really nice average attendance for them. They had such players as Lauren Holiday and Becky Sauerbrunn, and it was a successful venture, but ownership issues, and then the team up and left and went to Utah. That Utah team is returning to Kansas City, and women's professional soccer is back. I think it's a wonderful piece of information to have, and just good news for Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, as the women's game continues to grow, I think all you have to look at now is the crowds that the US women's national team got for the World Cup down in Power and Light, and the obvious support that, a lot of people give Kansas City flack for what happened to FCKC a couple of years ago. But as you said, there was a lot of infighting with the ownership and legal battles within the ownership, and just from the top down, it wasn't too good. So I'm thinking with a new ownership coming in, I'm not sure if they'll go back to the same game or not. But you mentioned the average attendance of 4K.
Yeah, in its best year, yeah.
I can see that going up, honestly. At least immediately, and I hope that support stays over time. But I don't see any reason why, at its top, you're looking at 8 to 10K fans. Obviously, there's a whole debate now of where they play, because it doesn't look like it'll be at Children's Mercy Park. But I think they're going to have to find somewhere that holds a decent amount of fans that's not just the 4K, because I think the city is showing that it supports women's soccer and it loves women's soccer. And it's a great time for the team to be coming back to KC despite the negative publicity the city got a couple of years ago.
The coach of the team when it was here was Vlatko Andonovsky, who is now the women's national team coach, and he and since the team has relocated to Utah, of course the U.S. women won the World Cup in 2019. So certainly, as you mentioned, a higher profile game than it was when FC Kansas City was here. I agree. I think it's on an upward trajectory and would succeed no matter where it's played. And you're right about needing to find a suitable stadium for the team. So looking forward to having them back. We'll see what the roster makeup is when they return and how competitive they'll be. But FC Kansas City. Are they keeping the name? Do you know, or
I have no idea.
We don't know that yet either, do we?
Yeah, apparently sometime within next week or so, they should be releasing name and logo and branding. But I would be surprised if they went elsewhere. I think FC Kansas City, with the 2 championships already attached to it, it wouldn't be the worst idea to just jump back on board with that.
There you go. Okay, Shaun Goodwin, great catching up with you, and we will talk to you again soon.
Always happy to, Blair.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Lynn Worthy and Shaun Goodwin for stopping by and talking roster moves with the Royals and Sporting Kansas City. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we got another deal for you, especially for those who want to deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. Do you want more than just the sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of these offers, send me an email, bkirkhoff@kcstar.com, and I'll get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode.